Hello and good evening. My name is Kathy Norman, and this is part one of two parts of Nuls ChainBox. Part one is the installation and configuration for ChainBox, and part two is the testing of the included application module mail example. And if you wish to reach me at any time, my username for Telegram is @kathyn.13. Okay. First thing that we need to do before we start the install is set up our path. And I have a script that does that for me. And the two things that you need to set in your path are Maven and Java, and it is recommended that you use 11.0.2 JDK for Java. And of course, setting up a path is proven when you execute something. Okay, so our path is ready to go. The next thing is to get the documentation. We're going to focus on Nuls ChainBox, and everything that we do tonight is referenced in the quick start. So the first thing is, let's get our directory. Our directory is empty, and let's download this repository. Here's what's downloaded, and example is the application module that's going to be included in the modules that is built across the next 4 to 5 commands. So the first thing we need to do is expand example. We're going to execute the build script. Now, there's two build scripts that we're executing, this one and another one in a few commands. And if you have any problems with these scripts, the first thing to check would be your path, because every time I've had a problem with the scripts, it's always been related to my path. Now, it's very important to confirm that you do get a package finish with some celebratory pictures. And what I'd like to do is draw your attention to what example looks like now. Oh, I think we're already in example. So now example has an outer directory and a directory called target. Outer contains a collection of files, and these collection of files are going to be incorporated in a larger collection of modules and associated files. And when you start your node, which is going to run your chain, your node is going to start a series of modules, of which Male example will be one of them, and it's from this collection of files that the node knows how to start this module. For example, module.ncf contains the Nuls configuration files for male-example, and then of course, as you can see, there's a start and a stop, and the jar for male example. All right, let's continue. So we're back at the top directory again, which represents the main repository of data that we downloaded. And the next thing that we're going to execute is tools-p example. And this basically incorporates the example directory as well as all the other modules that is included in the Nuls 2.0 runtime environment that you're building. Now this particular command is going to take about 5 minutes to run, and I'm running it on an 8 gig machine with a reasonable network performance. So keep that in mind when you execute this command. I'm going to actually be halting the demo so that you don't experience the 5 minutes, even though, of course, I will. Okay, the tools-p example has completed, and notice that we once again got the package finish salutation that we expected to see. So now let's take a look and see what we've created here. There's now a hidden directory called Nuls 2.0, which I invite you to check out. And this Nuls-wallet is the directory that contains everything that you need to start your node, debug your node, and learn more about your node. Once again, a hidden file that you can check out. Then the next 3 scripts are what you're going to become very familiar with. Start dev will start your node and start building assembling the modules that are going to comprise your node. Stop dev, of course, stops it, and check status checks the status of all the nodes that that you're going to be executing. I'm going to draw your attention to modules for a second. We're going to go down and take a look at a particular module. Now, there's 2 categories of modules, Nuls and Null star. Nuls are the modules that comprise of your node. They're the modules that perform all the specific functions with respect to your blockchain. Null star is the modules that are designed to maintain the communication and other requirements of your loosely coupled modules that comprise your blockchain. Now notice this is actually what your blockchain, or I should say your node, consists of. These 6 blockchain modules, along with a few other modules, including mail example. Now we're just going to take a look at a count. I just wanted to draw your attention to the fact that this looked a lot like the directory called outer that had been built for mail-example. And once again, it's all the modules that are required, including the executable, in order to start and begin executing the module called account, which, as you might have guessed, is responsible for all functions account related. Now, let's go back and start this node. Okay. Now we're going to do a start dev. Okay, we didn't get very far, but we didn't get very far because what start dev did was move the file default config nfc for Nuls configuration file and rename it to nuls.ncf. Did I say NFC before? I meant NCF. And your blockchain is built based on the characteristics in Nuls NCF, your blockchain as well as your node. And if you take a look at the instructions, they talk about specific values in nuls.ncf. They are the values that you expect to see. But there is one thing that you need to be aware of, and that is that there's a password stored in nuls NCF. And that password is nuls123456. So you need to remember that password, and I will tell you why in a moment. Okay, now let's just start this again. Okay, so we've started it, and it is starting. But it's going to take a little bit of time for it to complete, because there are a number of modules that need to be started. And the way that you check the status of these modules is a script called check-status. Now, I'm not going to run check status because it is very repetitive. It's a repetitive display of the changing states of the processes as they're started all the way to their final state, which is running. And it's a very verbose script, and it displays the status of these modules or processes over and over and over again, to the point where it actually stalls Quick Player. So I'm actually going to pause QuickTime Player one more time so I can execute this without QuickTime Player having to juggle the information. So here we go. Now how do I do this again? Oh yeah, option. Okay, I'm back. Now I have, when I paused, ran check status. And of course, it was quite a bit of time after we did the start to when I ran check status. And you can see that basically all the modules came up into the running state. And now it says that the Nuls wallet is running. So now we can go and start the script, or start the CLI. Okay, so the CLI has all the commands organized in various categories based on module responsibilities. So all the account commands are in one section, the block commands are in one section, transaction commands are in one section, and you can just do a help-a, and you can get all the commands for the various sections that they've been organized into. I'm also going to refer down here to this Linux CLI manual, which is going to discuss the same commands that I've shown you here. The value of the Linux CLI manual is that you see the output for the commands, and I've learned more about some of the commands by looking at the output than I did by looking at what the input was. All right, so now we've started the node, we've done the status, and now we're going to import the address of the seed node through the private key. And what this does is this gives us an account, a Nuls account, because there's a Nuls account affiliated with many components of the blockchain, not just, accounts are not just for you and I. They play a role in many of the components, partly because there's so much security tied around the account and the password. So now we're going to import this account here. And it says enter your password. Well, the password that you need to enter here is nuls 123456. Okay. This is an integral step because you need to import this private key and then retrieve the account and enter the correct password. If you enter the incorrect password, then this node cannot start building its blocks. But because we entered the correct password, this node is going to start building blocks. And we can confirm that everything was done because it says YZP, so we've got the right account. Now, what the developers have provided to us is 2 additional accounts, and these accounts are loaded with tokens. And the value of these accounts is that we can fire them up and start to use them right away, and we can use them to test mail-example. And then as opposed to normally you'd create an account, then you would go and you'd make a request for some tokens, and then 24 hours later you'd get your tokens back, and then you could do something. So now we're importing this one right here. And this time you can add your own password. And I recommend that you always use the same password over and over and over again. Otherwise, life becomes very confusing. Okay, and then we get the account ASD. That's what we expect to get. And then we import this one. And once again, we get YL24, which is what we expect to get. And these accounts have been loaded automatically into our wallet. I'm going to show you one more thing, and that is network info. And we now have a height of 13. As long as these 2 values here are not 0, that means that we're building blocks. And congratulations, you now have your chain up and running, and you're running on a single node. Stay tuned for part 2, and good luck with your hackathon.